please hit that subscribe button.
Hey everybody.
Better suited to win the Stanley Cup this season. If you are new to the channel, Washington Capitals, the Boston Bruins.
Locked on and he scored! And we're live. Hey everybody. So last night we had a really fun live stream where you, the viewers, voted and predicted what you think the NHL standings will look like next season. Now in this video, we're going to look at which teams I think will be playoff teams, which teams I don't think will be playoff teams, and teams that I think sit somewhere in the middle that have a shot to make it but may necessarily not. Basically what I'm going to do is I separated into three categories. We have playoff teams, we have bubble teams, and we have non-playoff teams. And I'm just going to go through all 31 NHL teams and pick, put them in a category. Where do I think they fall this coming season for the 2021 Stanley Cup playoffs? Now, before we begin, I just ask that you please hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Both of those things help out a lot and are very, very much appreciated. But let's get going here. As you can see, we have our three categories: non-playoff teams, bubble teams in the middle, and playoff teams all the way over here on the right. And not sure. Let's see, where do we want to start? We'll start with the Metro, because I think the Metro division is probably the hardest to predict, and certainly one of the closest and tightest. So first up is the Washington Capitals, and for me, Washington is a bubble team that belongs closer to the playoff team side than non-playoff. I do think the Capitals are going to make the playoffs, but I certainly don't think it's a guarantee. They play in the toughest division in the NHL, in the Metro. There are 7 good teams in the Metropolitan division, and maximum of 5 can make the playoffs next year. So there are going to be a couple of very good teams that get left out. Not sure if Washington is going to be one of them or not. I do think they end up making the playoffs, but I don't think it's a guarantee because of the division that they play, and they have an aging core, a questionable goaltending situation with an aging Henrik Lundqvist and a very young and coming off of an injury Ilya Samsonov. We don't know what their goaltending is going to be like. Their core is getting up there in age with guys like Backstrom and Ovechkin leading the way, who are in their mid-30s now. It's a question with Washington. Carolina, the Carolina Hurricanes, I am also going to put in a very, very similar situation to the Washington Capitals. Not exactly for the same reasons, but I do think Carolina is a bubble team most likely, but certainly leaning towards them making the playoffs. I don't see them not. Actually, I'm gonna go right over here and put them here. Carolina is making the playoffs next year. Their goaltending is a question. Mrazek and Reimer, it's a questionable duo. I'm going to put them right on the line, actually. They're going to go right on the line. I do think Carolina makes the playoffs, but it's close. But I do think that they're certainly a playoff team, and they're a young team that's continuing to get better. And I see them making it next year, but they're not all the way over to in the playoff side because of the division that they play in. I think there are some questions there. Columbus is another good team, but they're a bubble team. Columbus to me absolutely is a bubble team. This one I'm not even going to put as far over as the Capitals. They're a bubble team. I think it's tough to completely, throw them in either side. They certainly have a shot to make the playoffs. There's no question about that. There's only one team in this division that doesn't really, I think, have a chance to make the playoffs, and that's who we're going to talk about next. But Columbus, to me, is the definition of a bubble team. It's going to ride a lot on can they find scoring, and a lot on how do their young goaltenders play, Merzlikins and Korpisalo. If they play like they did last year, Columbus has a good shot of making the playoffs. If there's any slippage in goaltending play at all, then they may not. The one team from this division that is not a playoff team is certainly the New Jersey Devils. They are going over here. They are not a playoff team. Rebuild in full effect there in New Jersey. Not much else to say. New York Rangers, another team, a lot of young talent, a lot of promise. I'm putting them on the bubble team, in the bubble team category. Again, I'm going to put them pretty close towards the line for playoff team. I do think the Rangers make the playoffs next year. Again, in that division, it's going to be very difficult. The New York Islanders, similar to the New York Rangers. I think they're in they're not in similar situations as far as roster goes. And Islanders went to the conference finals last year. Rangers are coming out of a rebuild, but they're similar as far as I think of chances of making the playoffs. They're bubble teams, but I think they're more likely than not to make the playoffs. Pittsburgh Penguins, oh boy, I'm going to make some people mad with this one, but they're a bubble team, but I have them much more over here towards the not making the playoff side. Pittsburgh's had a horrendous offseason, in my opinion. Their goaltending situation is a huge question mark. Their defense continues to get worse. I am not a huge fan of what Pittsburgh's done, and I think they're an older team that's on the decline and on the way down. And finally, we have the Philadelphia Flyers, and they are the one team for sure, in my opinion, that absolutely will be a playoff team next year. They absolutely should be one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference again. And, I got Philadelphia definitely making it. Switching Atlantic Division now. We've got Boston. So Boston is up. Listen, Boston I don't think is going to be as good as they were last season, but I definitely think that they're still a playoff team. I don't see them going all the way out and completely missing the playoffs. That would be really bad for the Bruins, but I don't see that happening. I think they make the playoffs this year. Pretty confident in that. Tampa Bay, reigning Stanley Cup champions, you already know where they're going. We don't even really need to talk about this group. They are stacked. Even if they lose players, they have RFAs that they need to get re-signed. Even if they lose them, they're still absolutely stacked from top to bottom. They're a playoff team. Florida, they are a bubble team. Florida is absolutely a bubble team. I'm going to throw them a little more towards the not making the playoff side. I think it's going to be tough for them to make the playoffs in the East this coming year, but I definitely don't want to say that they don't have a chance, because if Bobrovsky gets back to being Sergei Bobrovsky and they can actually keep the puck out of their own net, then Florida does have a shot to be a playoff team. But I'm leaning towards no with the Panthers. Detroit, I mean, this isn't even a question. Full rebuild mode in Detroit. They've still got a long way to go. They're as far away from a playoff team as you can get. No shot. Buffalo, the Buffalo Sabres. You guys, this is going to be a tough one for me. The addition of Taylor Hall makes them better offensively without a doubt. They still have questionable goaltending, and that defense is not good. I'm not going to completely count them out. I know that might surprise some of you and how hard I am on the Sabres and how much I don't think the Sabres are really any good. I'm not going to completely count them out, because maybe if Ullmark really has a breakout season, and if that defense somehow just holds together, maybe Rasmus Dahlin really breaks out, maybe Jake McCabe has a really good year. I don't hold out much hope for Ristolainen, but if McCabe and Dahlin have really big years, maybe they go out and make a move to improve that defense. I'm going to put them in the bubble team category, but right on the edge of non-playoff team. I don't think the Sabres are going to make the playoffs next year, but I don't want to completely count them out. Toronto Maple Leafs, they are a playoff team, or at least should be. They're going to go along with the lines of Carolina, I think. They're going to go right on that line. They're right on that line of bubble team and playoff team. Now, again, I'm putting most teams in the middle for bubble. Very few teams are going to end up in a guaranteed playoff spot. I think most of the league is going to end up in this middle category. Toronto, I definitely think makes the playoffs next year. But as I do with Carolina, as I do with Washington, and a lot of these teams in the middle, I think they're going to make the playoffs, but it's not 100% certain. And I'm really saving these end categories for, there's really, I'm 99% sure that they're either going to make it or that they won't. Ottawa, yeah, that they won't. Ottawa is not going to make the playoffs this year. They're improving. They've got a fantastic prospect pool. There's a lot to like about the Senators, but they're not there yet. They've still got a little bit to go in this rebuild. The Senators will not be a playoff team this coming season. Montreal, this is the definition of a bubble team. I'm going to put Montreal similar to where I have the Columbus Blue Jackets. They're in very similar spots, I think. Definitely have a shot to make the playoffs. Absolutely could be a playoff team. Also, chance that they don't make it. That's possible as well. So that's the Eastern Conference. I think, most of them are bubble teams. We've got a few at each end, but I think, for the most part, this is what we're going to get. See, we got quite a group here in this spot fighting for those last few playoff spots. We've got these three guaranteed to make it. But this group right here, I think, 5 of those, what do we have? 7 teams. 5 of those 7 teams are going to make it, and probably 2 of them are going to get left out. But anyway, moving on to the West now, we have the Vegas Golden Knights. Vegas is a playoff team. I am putting Vegas in a playoff spot, absolutely. I mean, Leonard and Fleury is a dynamic duo in goal. Plenty of offense there. They brought in Pietrangelo to anchor the D. They may not win the division again this year. They might. They may not, though, but they certainly will be a playoff team, in my opinion. Edmonton Oilers, they're in a very similar spot to the Maple Leafs, I think. It's hard for me to imagine them not making it, but there still are questions about the team. But as long as they have a healthy McDavid and Draisaitl, I think the Oilers make it. I'm going to put them right on that line. Calgary Flames, definition of a bubble team. I think Calgary belongs right in this bubble spot here. Definition of a bubble team, in my opinion. They could go either way next year. Vancouver, bubble team as well, but more on the making it side. I think more on the making it side for Vancouver than Calgary, but still in the middle as a bubble team. Arizona, not going to completely count out Arizona. They are a very good defensive team and they have good goaltending, but I am going to lean towards them not making it next year, so I'll put them in the bubble team category, but more on the not playoff team side. And then we've got our 3 California teams. They're all going in the same spot. None of them are making the playoffs next year. They're all pretty much in rebuild mode. Some of them are in better shape than others. Like, again, I think LA is going to start getting these prospects to show what they can do, and are somewhat closer to being a playoff team than they were last year, but they're still got a little ways to go in the rebuild process. San Jose, that's a team that's in trouble, in my opinion, and is going to need a long, hard rebuild there at some point soon. But the 3 California teams again next year, I do not see making the playoffs. Moving on now to the Central to finish this up, we have the St. Louis Blues. St. Louis, again, I don't think they're going to be as good as they were last season, but I do think that they're absolutely a playoff team. I don't think they're going to be as good, but they're still making the playoffs. They're not going to fall off that far. Colorado, they're absolutely a playoff team. Colorado is going to be one of the absolute best teams in the NHL next season. I don't see any way around that. They might be the best team in the regular season next year. We don't know. But Colorado is absolutely making the playoffs. Dallas, again, I think they make the playoffs. I really think Dallas does make the playoffs. I'm going to put them kind of on that line between bubble team and guaranteed playoff spot. They're going to make it, but I guess it's not 100%. Maybe if Nashville and Winnipeg both drastically improve, then they could get bumped down a little. But again, I see Dallas making it. Nashville, definition of a bubble team to me, right there in the middle, bubble team without a doubt. Again, they had a really down year last year. The talent is there with them. The potential is there with them. They've just got to put it together. Again, they're going to be fighting for a wild card spot, most likely, in my opinion. Chicago, I kind of want to put on the bubble, but if they're going to go in with their goaltending duo being Malcolm Subban and Colin Delia, that duo is not making the playoffs in the NHL. They're just not. So unless they fix their goaltending situation, I'm leaning towards non-playoff team for them. They've openly said that they're rebuilding and that they're in rebuild mode right now. I'm going to put them right on the line between bubble team and non-playoff team, but they're not going to make it next year, most likely. Minnesota Wild, again, I'm going to put them in the bubble team category, but closer to the non-playoff team. I don't think they make it. But you can't completely count them out. but they're definitely not likely. I'd give them definitely less than a 50% chance of making it. And finally, Winnipeg. Winnipeg, I think, is very similar to Nashville, as in, like, they have a shot. They certainly have a chance to make it, but it's definitely not a guarantee. They need Hellebuck to play like he did last year, again this year, at his Vezina level. They need, so their top six to really produce offensively, and then hope that defense holds together. I'm putting them right in the middle as a bubble team there in the West. So that is everybody. All 31 teams, I've put them all in their categories of non-playoff team, bubble team, or playoff team. Again, the end categories were basically reserved for teams that are like almost 100% guaranteed to finish there. The most teams will go in the middle. A majority of teams go in the middle and will be fighting for playoff spots. Again, varying degrees of likelihood of them making the playoffs or not making the playoffs. But this is my opinion. Anything that you agree with, disagree with, put it down in the comment section below. Let me know what you think. Who do you think's making the playoffs? Who do you think is not? With that, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon, merchandise store, and donation link are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.